Welcome to Breathe, Love, Parent, the Shine On podcast. I'm your host, Rach, yoga teacher, natural mama, and passionate guide in all things nervous system and connection. This is your space for honest conversations, emotional wellbeing tools, and mindful parenting insights. Whether you're in the thick of meltdowns or seeking a moment of calm, you belong here. Let's take a breath together and begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Breathe, Laugh, Parent, the Shine On podcast. Today, I am honoured to share this conversation with you as I introduce Liv Lightly. Liv is a soul session facilitator and symbolic translator between worlds, helping people navigate life through tarot, astrology, and intuitive reflection. Her work bridges the everyday and the sacred through beauty, magic, meaning, and the lived experience, supporting people to build conscious, coherent relationships with their own energy field and intuitive wisdom. So welcome, Liv. I'm so grateful and honoured to start this conversation with you today, and acknowledging that today's conversation is coming from Ngunnawal country and Wiradjuri country. So honouring the First Nations people of wherever you're listening from today. So Liv, welcome. For listeners who are new to your work, can you share, I mean, these are such big questions, but who are you? So who are you and how you work with tarot and astrology, and particularly how you support people to understand energy without fear or overwhelm?
Yeah, thank you, Rach. Thank you very much for that beautiful welcome. And I'm absolutely bursting with joy and excitement, and I'm so honored to be on your podcast as well. So thank you for having me. Super excited that we met.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So who am I and what do I do? So I love that this kind of is a year about becoming, because I feel like, in a sense, we're all continuously becoming the newer versions of us. We're just kind of more coming into that realization now. Like generations ago, you know, you had your vocation and that's what you did for however many decades. And now we're always constantly evolving and changing. So I feel like that's been my whole life path.
Yeah.
But a little bit of my background is that I studied in art history and theory. And so I always thought I was going to put those skills to work in a gallery setting. And I had no idea that it was going to bring me into working with pattern recognition, nervous system signals, form and field, ancient symbolism, and then kind of weaving that into cosmic timing with astrology and what that means to the individual. So it really is about what I do in a soul session. And I've been struggling with finding the right words actually to describe what it is, because I think people know what soul coaching is and what soul guidance is, but I'm still looking for that word that creates a more of a sense of like walking beside somebody as opposed to a hierarchy. Because if you come into a session with me and expect a performance or that I'm going to give you the answers, it doesn't really quite work that way. It's more about facilitating that conversation for you to have with yourself and your soul or your heart resonance or whatever word you like to use that makes you feel like you're communicating and going inward as opposed to responding to external influences. I feel like the best way to describe what I do, because it unfolds differently every single time, but what I see at the end is very consistent, that like a lot of people will bring notepads or pencils into their sessions and they end up writing down nothing because what gets brought up and what gets communicated in a session is something that they know very deeply and very intuitively. And it might just be the first time that someone's created a space where you had permission to say it out loud. And so they come away feeling a lot of peace and ease and freedom. And then like the next step there is to then like how do I learn the skills to recreate that and create that space for myself when I go back out into the world? And so that's kind of how we do that weaving between the sacred and the everyday. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds lovely, but also so needed too. Like, I love that piece, how it's, often we have these sacred or these soulful experiences, and then we're like, oh, how do I integrate? Like, how do I still function? Because I'm still a human being having this human, or, I'm having this human experience. How do I bring in my soul gifts or this awareness to life, to living? So, yeah.
Integration can kind of be the hardest thing, because when you move out of a session and into the everyday world, what you now understand within yourself often isn't reflected back to you in the external world. So you have to become your own mirror. And I suppose that's what I do with my sessions. Like, someone might come in and just need one session, but quite often I find what works really well, and what I've done with my mentors in the past, is to have like a regular kind of a tuning session, like going, this is what I'm noticing, this is what I'm experiencing, what might I be missing? And then having that touch point with someone who can speak to you on that soul level, that just helps the integration come in drip by drip. So you don't feel like you have to have all the answers all at once. It very rarely works out that way. But it's like, when we do this soul work, it feels like, okay, like I've gone da, 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 and I've like gone through all these steps. And then when you feel like you've spiraled down to the beginning, you have to remember you've actually moved up an octave. So we're like going all the way, reaching the highest level of this vibration. And then when we drop down, it's because we're at the next octave and we've got the next steps. And then we keep going. But we are always kind of like spiraling around, not just bolting and winning the sprint. And there's a finish line somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the concept of the healing spiral, and the healing spiral that is, going upward. It's not, we're spiraling out of control. It's like, actually, no. And it's that constant, like the weaving. I like to call healing like an onion. Like, there's always, you take off one layer and then there's another layer, and then it's, we're just getting deeper into the core wounds or the core whatever messages, whatever needs to come through. Because I feel like in my experience, I'm only ever able to take on or be open to whatever my nervous system has capacity for in that time, or my life allows. So, I'm very interested to continue this conversation with you, Liv. Your work sounds, really, I'm intrigued, and I'm motivated to, learn more from you. So, today's conversation, it's really about looking at the energy for this. We're talking about this year as in the Lunar New Year. So, recently I listened to one of my most recent podcast episodes, Birthing the Most Loved and Nourished Version of me. And you mentioned that it felt really on point for the energy of this year. So can you share with us what stood out to you energetically about that intention, and share some of your insights with us?
I loved it. I think after listening to that episode, I was like, oh, Rach is like, she's right on. Like, why does she need to talk to me? But I've written down a couple of things that really stood out for me, that are really in tune with what I sense is the energy of the fire horse here, or what is that like urgency or anticipation that we're all picking up on. There's like this sense of newness, or that, we're so ready for a new beginning. We're just, oh my gosh, can we just like get on with the new? But one thing that really stood out that you said was, you don't need to become someone new this year. And you also said we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do over the course of many years. And so what I'm hoping through our conversation is that we'll be able to help, your listeners to disengage from that sense of urgency that is, that I feel is like really perpetuated in the social media scape predominantly, because there's that sense of immediacy, and it's also kind of lacking that space for integration and contemplation as well, when you're just constantly like consuming information, and without kind of like having that time to really process what it means to you. And I love that you like sustainable growth comes from alignment, not pressure. So today we're also going to be chatting about prioritizing in intention and awareness before action, because this image of the fire horse does conjure up a lot of images straight away in the mind. And so we're going to be kind of moving away from that sense of like, I got to get on the horse. I always feel like in Australia, when we hear fire horse, like I immediately get this picture of it's Melbourne Cup Day, and like the favorite filly is like getting up to the starting gates, and like then the gates open, it's going to bolt, and I've got to make sure I've got my bet on, and I've got to make sure that I'm part of this action, and like, it feels like that, where, when we bring the horse in, it really feels like we got to get on the winning horse. We're going to be the victor. We're going to be the conqueror. And I'm going to have my moment to shine. That's what it can feel like. And so that's a 6 of Wands card there on the horse. But the 6 of Wands can also feel like this is your moment to shine. But these are two very modern images of what it means to have your moment to shine. It's about kind of being on the stage, having the spotlight on you, being the winner. But very rarely does the image of like having your moment to shine look steady and calm.
Yeah, I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Humpty in the background. He's on the wall still.
I've pulled out, so for those that are listening in, I've pulled out 2 cards from Pamela Matthews' deck, the new Eon Tarot. And I looked for images of horses, which there are many in her deck, but this one really felt like the kind of old paradigm feeling of the fire horse. Like, I got to get on the horse. I have to dominate it, control it, conquer it, and I will be the victor at the end. Whereas and that feels like so if we move from like a fire horse image in like, say, the racing world, and we move out into the fields, into the wilderness, and we think about collaborating with a wild horse, very different kind of energy to be able to collaborate with something that is wild and free. It almost has to choose you.
Yeah. That is such beautiful symbolism, and that's not something that I seen. Like, I agree with you with what you mentioned about social media, how that like a sense of urgency. But even just some of the information that I'm seeing about the fire horse, it's all kind of like, go get them, this is it, and get on the horse, otherwise you're going to be left behind kind of attitude. But then when you stop and think and reflect about like a wild Brumby and what that would look like, and taming, and they've got to come to you. And I love that term, collaborating. That's such a beautiful and like feminine way to approach this upcoming Lunar New Year. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
All right. And I feel like that episode of yours in particular kind of opened up that space to have that conversation, because when I've been chatting with other mums, like I can see them almost like shutting down when you mention like fire horse here. They're like, oh, and it's overwhelm. I'm like, I don't need that pressure in my life.
Yeah.
I don't want it. I want to be out of the race. I don't want to race anymore. And I really feel like that's the shift out of the old paradigm into the new paradigm. And so we're going to be talking about what is this new sense of power if it's not coming first? Where does it come from? Where does it land in the body? And how do I get there? How do I get there?
I love that. So let's, if you feel ready, would you mind if we shifted into you sharing what kind of, let's assume that people don't follow the Lunar New Year or Chinese astrology closely at all. So can you just share with us to describe the overall energy of this year? Like, you've touched on it a bit briefly, but if we could just expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And full disclosure, I don't even really follow Chinese astrology that closely either. I more tend to be, I lean towards more embodied and evolutionary astrology in the Western, like tropical zodiac sense. But what I do track and I do it with like, I was going to say pinpoint accuracy, but that's kind of not me. It's also, I kind of feel guided a lot of the time, but what I track is what resonates. So I'm finding, and you might be finding too, that there are a lot of people talking about the fire horse here, just like last year. There are a lot of people talking about the wood snake energy as well, and none of them are Chinese astrologists. No. And you might even find, like, out in conversation, there are people talking about Chinese astrology who have never mentioned it before in their life.
Yeah.
And so what I will speak to is like why I think that the ancient symbols of the wood snake and the fire horse are resonating so deeply for people at this time. So I don't think you need a background in Chinese astrology or following the the Chinese traditions, because I think their new year goes over a period of time. This year it's like the 17th of February when the new moon begins, and then it goes through till the 3rd of March, I think, when the Lantern Festival's on. So that's about all I know.
Yeah.
But when we look at what those symbolic images kind of conjure up in people, like I think you said somewhere in the notes that like last year people felt like an intensity, quite a heaviness, an overwhelm. And when we look at what the snake symbolizes, oh, actually, before I jump to that, so you may also be hearing people say, just as frequently as they're talking about the snake year and the horse year, they're talking about the 9 year and the 1 year. So this is when numerology kind of overlaps what's happening in the Chinese astrology as well. So the year of the wood snake was a 9 year. So if you went 2 + 2 + 5, or 2 + 0 + 2 + 5 = 9. And 2026, when you add up those numbers, is a 10, which then you add 1 and 0 is a 1. So in numerological traditions, like this is a 1 year. And so that means like we cycle through with the numbers as they add up, going through like a 9-year cycle, if you like. So if you look at numerology, it's a new beginning. If you look at Chinese astrology, it's indicating that there's this newness that's around, because the snake, and so if we take the numerology of last year as a 9 year, the 9 card in the tarot is the Hermit.
Oh, wow.
And interestingly, a lot of the Hermit imagery has snakes in it. And so the snake is very transformative. It sheds its skin. So it's like a shedding of the old and preparing for the new. But I feel like the symbol of the snake is about transformation. It's not necessarily embodying the new, but it's that process of transformation. And so the Hermit has some really beautiful iterations of like it.
I love that image.
It felt like last year was a year of solitude.
Yes.
And that's kind of like what the Hermit feels like. You're going into your cave. And I love how colors correspond across decks too. It's incredible.
It is. So we're just looking at some cards here if you're not watching but listening, and we've got real like a deeper tones and like your greens and blues, and they're in both. So Liv's holding up 2 images here of 2 different card decks, I assume, and there's like a light coming really from like the heart space, even on both of them, like a bright light shining in amongst this darkness and this deep, like blue, green, greys and blacks, which is symbolic in itself.
Yeah, the Hermit often holds the lantern. Like you could think of that as being the lighthouse as well. Like they hold the light within, and they, traditionally go into the cave, but these colors almost suggest like being underwater as well. And I think when I love sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, I go underwater and submerge my head because of the quiet that you can create there as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like your 9-year Hermit energy, which can also feel like, so the snake also symbolizes death. And this is one of my favorite death cards across all of the decks that I own. It's a hooded figure with, there's a landscape through the hood instead of a face, and it's almost like a new dawning.
Yeah, I've not seen anything like that. That's quite cool. Is that a snake tail at the top,
Oh,
or is that just?
oh my gosh, you're right. I have never noticed that
Is
before.
it like? I mean,
Yeah,
it looks to me like that's what
totally.
I'm
Or it
seeing.
could be a dragon tail, or it could be what.
Yeah, it's like some kind of reptile. It's reptilian. That is really cool.
That's very cool. I love that you spotted that. The Thoth deck also has the snake in the imagery there, although Thoth can be really quite dense on the symbolism and not so much speak to the everyday contemporary experience. But just to give you a sense, like the snake can often be attributed to death and rebirth. And this is a beautiful death card here as well, which also has the
I
symbol
like
of the
that.
horse.
Oh,
But
it does too.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think about a snake, like a snake sheds its skin when
Mm.
it's outgrown that skin,
Yeah.
when it's moving into what it's becoming,
Yeah, exactly.
which I think
That
is a really important thing to remember.
when we look back at last year, it's like what needed to be stripped away in order to allow the openness for the new is what had to come out. And it can feel really intense. And there's potentially even a lot of grief around that kind of sense of heaviness, like the things that you have to say goodbye to, the things you have to let go of. It could be people, places, and things. That's kind of where that feeling of heaviness, I think, resides. But then this year will be like that newness of the 1 year. So in the tarot, when we move into the one, we shift into the magician.
I like this.
Yeah. And actually, this is a very traditional type of magician. The man very upright and all of his tools and the elements are on display out on the table. And it's like he has all of his tools available to him. But the one is that spark of awareness or intention that comes in before the action as well. Like his tools are all out on the table. He is not using them yet, but he's ready.
Yeah.
He's ready. This is the upper octave of that card, and the snakes are in there behind as well. So we've gone through the transformation. We're not in the new yet, but we're getting prepared and we're getting ready. This is another magician that's a female magician.
And again, the colors, Liv, like we've got like those aquamarines. There's all aqua in every single one of them. There's purple, there's blues, but there's also this bright red. That's really, they're works of art, aren't they? Yeah, look at the
Yeah. Really important that you pointed that out, because alchemy is an important part of the magician card. And so that's fire and water, the red and the blue. But I think this isn't my favorite magician card, but I think it's a really beautiful guiding light for where we are right now.
Existence. I love that. That is beautiful.
And it's a lady in her birthday suit sitting on a lily pad looking up at the stars, and she's not on the water surface. She's kind of suspended in this liminal space. And I think, my whole body just went whoa when I heard the word liminal. It's like that in between existence where the old is falling away, the new hasn't quite found its roots or its groundedness yet. And so the power in this moment is being able to stay present with what is.
Yeah, that just really hit in my heart then. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what were we even talking about?
Yeah, no. No. We're talking about, you were talking about what resonates and how people have been aligning more than ever. We've been aligning with like Chinese astrology because we're looking, I think where we're going with this is that we're looking for resonance, for symbolism, for meaning making.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and you mentioned that it was a 9-year last year. It's a 1 year. Yeah, so in terms of numerology, we're looking at now stepping into a 1 with the motion of horse. But then we discussed about, well, what if it was a wild horse we were in collaboration with, as opposed to the horse in which we're winning the race with?
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you. I need to get I need some grounding to come back in. I was like, it took me off on a whole journey now. Where were we?
No, I love that though. But that's, that's the beauty of being, as we just said, in existence, being present with what is. And that's where the conversation flowed. And I think, again, I'm fully in trusting of like the divine message that needs to come through for our listeners today. And I also trust that people will find this episode when they need to hear it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like this is all perfect. All perfect.
But there are also some other really big new things that are happening as well. If you want me to just kind of spend a little bit of time walking through, like placing this year in a context of other new beginnings that are.
Yeah, because you did just mention about, I'm really intrigued in terms of like where we are cosmically. So, because I've picked up on like a few little things that you've said, and I'm like, oh, I want to go there. I want to go there. I want to go there. So, you'd mentioned about like the new paradigm. And so we're in this kind of liminal state, this like we're shedding what was, what we did, what wasn't serving us, or we're shedding what needs to shift before we step into the new, and we're kind of in this limbo phase. Can you talk to us about what this new paradigm may mean and what does that mean for us?
Beautiful. Thank you. Because I feel like it doesn't really matter where you looked. Like if so, for the last couple of weeks, you've been under a rock and you haven't heard anything about the Lunar New Year, you look to other places for a signal that the new is beginning. It's everywhere. So we've got the Lunar New Year. That marks the beginning of spring, and it's always the second new moon after the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, but for us that's the summer solstice, so it's marking the beginning of our autumn, but it's a tradition that exists on the other hemispheres. So the date will always change. The fire horse energy is about movement, independence, vitality, momentum, but that fire element also brings in that intensity, visibility, volatility, and like that sense of an amplified life force. So I just wanted to touch on that because I thought it was really interesting to go. The last time the fire horse year took place was on January 21st in 1966.
Oh.
So when we think back to the 60s, I didn't dive into this too far, but it was a time of cultural revolution. And historically speaking, fire horse years have often been seen as a very strong year, unstable and disruptive.
My mum was born that year, so that explains a lot.
Who was?
My mum, she was born in 66. So like disruptive. Yeah, that's her. No, I say that with love. I'm joking. She'll probably listen to this and have a giggle as well. But
I wonder, you're very strong-willed.
100%.
You go.
100%.
I love that you brought that up because my acupuncturist told me that, and again, this is hearsay for me. I haven't looked up numbers on this, but apparently birth rates declined massively in China in 1966 because of that kind of superstition around the strong-willed human, like being unstable and disruptive. And my mind goes, but they're the people that go in and change the world. Like, why would you want to shy? Why would you want to shy away from that? But and we think about like the Cultural Revolution that was happening in the 60s. Like one thing she did say to me is that like fire horse energy tends, like whatever gets initiated in that year can tend to become permanent. So like if you're thinking like wheels in motion, let's become really intentional about who we are becoming and what it is that we want to create. So I feel like, for a lot of Chinese astrology, the emphasis is on the year that you were born and it defines you. But we're kind of talking about how will it define my experience of this year? And then in the grander scheme of things, we're talking about how it might define us through the generations as we move forward, because this is a really big spark of a year.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And fire and horse is double yang. So it's like really active energy, but that can mean it can be really active in the collective. It doesn't mean that it has to be you.
Right.
So we can look
Yeah.
at it like kind of collective will, if you like. And then if I can shift gears, we can have a look at the new moon, which initiates the new lunar year, but in a Western astrology perspective, that happens on February 17th. So that's
10 days,
yeah,
9 days away.
yeah, from the
Yeah.
time of recording. So at a new moon, the sun and the moon are sitting together, which is called a conjunction. And that's happening at 28 degrees of Aquarius. Now, Aquarius has been talked about a lot for the last couple of years because Pluto has been moving into Aquarius. And at the time of this new moon, we have a huge stellium of planets in the sign of Aquarius. So not only is the sun and the moon there, but all the personal planets. So Mercury, the messenger, Venus and Mars, and then also Pluto. It's also square to Uranus, who's at 27 degrees of Taurus. And so that kind of adds that element of unpredictability and potential for sudden change. It also signals the start of the eclipse season for this year too. So it's a solar eclipse, not just a new moon as well. And then the big one that all the astrologers have been talking about is that Saturn and Neptune are conjunct at the 0 point of Aries. And so Aries is the fire sign that starts the zodiac cycle. And so we have Saturn, who takes, oh gosh, I can't remember if it's 27 or 29 years to go around the zodiac, but Neptune takes around 165 years. So nobody in the life cycle will see Neptune go through all of the signs. So just being alive when Neptune is starting its journey again is pretty special. And then I'm getting like goosebump shivers all down my body. The last time that Saturn and Neptune were conjunct at the 0 point of Aries is so far back, nobody really knows exactly when it was, but I hear 9,000 years ago, all the way back to 12,000 years ago. So we're kind of talking at the earliest, like 7,000 BC? Yeah, 7,000 BC at the earliest, maybe even further back than that was the last time that this happened. And that conjunction becomes exact, like on the same week, a matter of days after this new moon.
Whoa.
Others have been talking about this week that the new moon happens on for years. They're like, this is like one of the biggest things that has ever happened in our known history because we haven't experienced this. We can only like guess at what's recorded in the history books as to what this means for human civilization.
This is huge.
It's huge. I know.
It's so much bigger than I thought. It's so much bigger than like a fire horse.
I don't know. So like all of these alignments that are happening in the next couple of days, next few weeks, suggest a period of profound transformation and potential for new beginnings on both a personal level and a collective level. But it keeps getting even bigger from there because we're also talking about the move from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, which is the precession cycle. And so funnily that I mentioned 1966 before, because do you remember that song, The Age of Aquarius?
Aquarius.
Right?
Yeah.
That was sung by a group called The Fifth Dimension. And the album was called The Age of Aquarius, and it was released in 1969.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're singing about this time. So it's highly contentious between a lot of scholars as to whether we're already in the age of Aquarius, whether Pluto moving into Aquarius marked that, or, whether we're not quite there yet, because we're talking about a cycle that takes 26,000 years.
Oh my gosh.
So
to fall off my chair.
Aquarius begins, nobody really knows. So when we're talking about this is a time of the new, it everywhere is like a marker going, now is the time. But new could be in the next 2 weeks. New could be, if it's the Saturn cycle, it could be the next couple of years. If it's Neptune, it could be the next decade. If we're looking at the precessional cycle, we could be experiencing the new for the next 1,000 years. Who knows? But all of it is kind of pointing to huge transformations, potentially very quick changes, generationally speaking. So what we're going to do is we're like going all the way out there. And I didn't even mention that the star constellation that sits at the 0 point of Aries is the Pegasus star constellation. So even if you look at Western astrology, you're still working with the horse.
Oh, gosh.
It's so cool. But yeah, so we're going to so what I wanted to do is pull it all the way out here to go, let's all chill. That there's no urgency this year. But new could also be, like we said, in the next hour or two. Things could change dramatically in the next hour because communication in this world happens like that.
Mm.
When it had to arrive on pen and paper by boat, change happened really slowly, but it is instantaneous. And so where we're probably going to go from that is how on earth do we coach our nervous system through something that is like this big, and our experience is like right down here.
Yeah. Let's do that.
But I might just throw it over to you, even I'd love to hear what resonated in there or what really stood out for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a bit just still trying to formulate all that idea into one. I didn't know about all the other stuff. But it's funny with the age of Aquarius, I can explicitly remember a time in my life. It was that transition. I was at schoolies actually up on the Gold Coast, and we stayed at a backpackers called Aquarius, and we all sung this song of Age of Aquarius. Anyway, it's just a memory that has stuck with me for my whole life. Anyway, so that was really quite funny when you mentioned that. I was like, I can still remember explicitly that song from that moment. Why I'm sharing that, I don't really know. But
I was saying the same thing to a friend yesterday. I think it was my husband actually. I can explicitly remember the first time I heard that song. I was in the PCYC gym and we were doing it as a dance for a school musical or something. And I cannot find that version of the song because in my mind, I remember it kind of conjuring up these jungle images, which is what the song is about. I have no idea. I can't find that version of the song now that I'm looking for it. And I'm going, is my memory of it accurate? Because when I play the song back, I'm like, that's not how I experienced it.
Yeah.
So weird. But there's very few songs in my childhood that I can go, I remember the moment when I heard that song. I remember what room I was in, what it smelt, who was I don't remember faces, but I knew I was in a school group. So I wonder how many people, when they hear all of this information, will be like, I know exactly where I heard that song too.
That's it. I'm gonna I'll include the song as a connection to this podcast because I want people to hear it and go, oh yeah, and maybe they haven't heard it. But yeah, I remember the words. Like any other song, I don't really know, but I remember being like, oh, I wonder what that Age of Aquarius is all about. And here we are.
And
so it's
just as a side note, the YouTube clip of the music video is really hilarious.
Oh, it would be. I mean, it's the 60s. I don't even. Yeah, I could.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to do a deep dive into that. Go down a Age of Aquarius rabbit hole. Oh, so yeah, you asked me how that is all resonated. How's that landing? It's a lot to take in. However, I'm really curious. What something that's standing out for me is the collective, and how I feel like maybe it's important to mention that we, as individuals, we can do our part that makes up the greater collective, that it's not our responsibility to take it all on ourselves. And I think just even by hearing that message, it might just allow some people to just ground a bit and go oh, okay. I think if we tend to our own garden, if we tend to nurturing ourselves, and then we can hold our ground in a fiery movement, that it could be potentially turbulent. Some people don't cope with change as well as others. Sudden change could have a trauma response, or could have having to process grief and stuff around that too. So yeah, that's what I feel like I needed to share.
That's perfect,
Yeah.
because now I know why this card came out, because I've got all my cards out ready to pull out, and I pulled this one out and I didn't really know why. But if you can see, it's like the Mobius strip, or the symbol of eternity is like a ribbon, and then there are these like needles or staffs that come down. I think it's the Eight of Wands, but they almost look like little frequency antennas at the top.
Mm.
And so how I read this card is that it's like we're all acupuncture needles on the surface of the earth. And so our job is to integrate and transmute that which is relevant to us. So like you said, we don't have to take on everything all at once. And actually mentioned that somewhere here too, that like to give people permission to stop processing that which isn't yours to hold, because there is big stuff coming to light in the world. And even though it might be new information to us, it's old. It's been here a long time. And so being sovereign in our emotional state, and acknowledging or even being very discerning about what is ours to take on and what is ours to just move through us. So like, just because you're aware of something doesn't mean you're obliged to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And you can have that awareness and then still perform your roles and responsibilities in your world. I think, especially as mums, like the the thing to come back to is that like the little people in front of us are our priority, but even before that, your biggest priority. I keep talking about my acupuncturist, but she comes out with some gold sometimes. She's like, Liv, your top priority every moment in your life is to breathe in and then breathe out. And it's that simple until the day you die.
Mm.
So it's like putting on your own oxygen mask first. Like,
Yeah.
breathe, recalibrate, give yourself that time to respond and to digest and integrate, and then come back. So we're tuning in and we're discerning before we move into action. And
Yeah.
we kind of really are the only people that can grant ourselves that space to do that.
Yeah.
That's a nice one too. It's like, so I had some words written down here about, the old paradigm, as I kind of feel relates to this theme, is urgency culture versus coherence culture. So coherence is really the word that I want to kind of like bring home for this topic, because our urgency culture teaches us that faster is better. Being certain about something means you're safe. Being in reactivity and signal amplification and performance. So like it's about speed and it's about volume. Whereas the coherence culture that we're adapting to and moving into is that right timing equals power. Because when you wait for right timing and you're not pushing against where you are right now, when that timing snaps in, there's momentum. Adaptability means safety, being able to respond, discern, and focusing on signal clarification. So becoming really clear about the signals that you're taking in and what that actually means to you. And then embodiment, rather than performance, like coming into an embodied state and being like, to me, embodied equates to being present as well in my body. I'm not back there in my past. I'm not projecting into the future. I'm like right here, right now. And that's the new power paradigm.
Yeah. Yeah. I resonate with a lot of what you've said. In fact, even just the past 24 hours, I've had this very clear message of like, okay, we have access to loads of information. Me as an individual, I have a lot of knowledge and wisdom. But, and like this is very much in relation to parenting, it's like, okay, this is great. This is all great that it's all out there, and that's great. I can access it. But what I'm doing is just going to stop the noise and tune in. And exactly what you've been saying is just like tune in and then align with my values on the best way that I need to care for these two little people in front of me. So it's like, yep, this is all noise, or this is all accessible, and that's all great, but like, what matters between me and you right now? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And does this feel like a good time to go into a bit of story time?
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Then what we might do is like we might do a reading and pull some cards out. But I thought it was really interesting. A friend put me onto a book series that I read last year because when I was thinking about the fire horse, I was like, I actually read a story last year that had a fire horse in it. And it's a trilogy by Catherine Arden. And the third book is called The Winter of the Witch. Have you read these?
No, but I just love this. And look at the colors. I just love everything. It's all just relating.
And it's like it's based in Moscow in the times of princes and boyars. And the first book is The Bear and the Nightingale. And I absolutely loved it. The main female character is called Vasya, and she has special skills. She has the sight and she can see. And this was in the time of, I think it was domovoys that like were the demon spirits, but not demons like we would understand them, but they were the spirits that looked after the house or looked after the hearth or looked after the stables where the horses were. And the domovoy in the stable taught her how to speak to horses. So her relationship with horses is something that like follows throughout the whole book. So she has her horse that she is gifted, but then there's also this fire horse that every prince and duke in Moscow wants to have that horse for himself, wants to dominate it, control it. And then when this horse like bolts and gets free, like it burns half the city down, because that's what something very powerful will do when it's trying to be contained, if you like. And so Bazir ends up being the only person, and funnily enough being a woman, who gets to ride her, but the horse bows its head in invitation, not submission. And so we go back to this idea of like, how do we collaborate with this wild, free horse, and how do we work with it? Because it feels like it's relationship over ownership.
Yeah.
And power comes through trust, not force. So it's about shifting into that state of trust. And looking at it's like fire without coherence just burns, but fire with coherence transforms. And so it can carry you exactly where you need to go, even if you don't know where that is. And like you find this kind of coming up through the story, and the invitation that's there is not to run faster or to have more power or to be in control, but it's to become coherent enough that when the energy does arrive and you are invited to get on the horse, then we're in that state of readiness so that we don't actually burn out, and it can carry us forward with momentum. So I thought it was a beautiful story to kind of bring in and weave into this idea of the fire horse. But there's so many different ways that you can look at this trilogy, if you like. If we think of the horse being like, say, the divine will, and the woman being the personal will, and their relationship, which may be showing up in service. So we could think of the horse as spirit, the woman as soul, and their relationship like being the body and moving into action and expression. So like when they come together, like that's when we can put action forward. You could also think of the horse as our nervous system and our instinct and our life force and our survival response, but also like our truth detector. And the woman in the story being more like our intuition and our observer self, the space where choice is present and being able to provide that safe space for the animal as well. And then their relationship when they come together is coherence. It's regulation, it's trust, and it's signal integrity.
Yeah.
Then you could also think of the horse as like being the collective energy or the collective activation, the divine will, and that which generates energy, and the woman represents your personal attunement to that. So this is like the big power source that's available to you out here. And what is it that you need to attune to, and what is that part of you that can choose before you start to work with that energy and with that power? Because I feel like who knows what it feels like to get on the back of a fire horse? You don't know what's going to happen. You have to be so present.
Yeah, I know. And when I think of that, like I have this memory. I was in when I was in Uruguay about 11 years ago now, and I jumped on this horse. Like it was invited onto this horse. I went onto this horse. I think I had a saddle. I must have had a saddle. I don't think I was bareback, but it just cantered. And I held on and like I worked with it. And I just remember that being like a state of surrender, because I was also like, whatever happens, whatever happens. But just like the speed and like the ferociousness, like but also like how fear and resistance could have made that situation really unsafe and really dangerous. But the concept of like surrendering to the beast, that I will, and like as you will. But then thinking about that being like a fire horse, like if there was like fire around, I just feel like that's got such a significant energy to it, like symbolically, but also just like, yeah, even just like, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I wanted to share that.
No, imagine getting on top of a fire horse before you were feeling ready.
Yeah, no. But even like, and so something that I'm really hearing from our conversation is like meeting the energy of this new year, this new time in this new period of time with the feminine qualities of softness and surrender and openness. And it's like, well, how can we meet something like that is assumed to be so masculine in energetics, or masculine in qualities, with our feminine? And how can we, like as you're saying, coherence, how can we bring them together so that we're in harmony or we're in balance over the next 12 to 13 months?
The next however long. And it feels like that weaves in beautifully with the discourse that's surfacing about moving out of a patriarchal system and into a matriarchal system, where we're in circle and children are at the center of everything that we do. And it's not here yet, but we're getting this sense of what the structure might be able to look like. And we're like resonating with the values that might come with that. And so we're getting a lot of these feelings. And I think, to circle back, that's what I loved about your podcast episode before, was that it was so centered on how do I want to feel. And so when we move out of trying to think our way through how to get on the fire horse, and we come back down into our heart center, and we feel and we soften and we create that safety within ourselves, or for our nervous system, or for the people who are like feel like, for which we are the temperature gauge of the emotions in the household, like all of that sort of stuff comes from the heart center. And then instinct kind of moves from the gut. And really, like we've lived in our mental space for so long that it's we need to practice kind of listening into those other brain centers that we have.
Yeah, that we're once so in touch and in tune with, but now it's a remembering, like it's remembering how to trust and how to connect and how to align from those places, as opposed to like the logical sense or what we've been conditioned to believe or conditioned to act. Yeah. Release the hustle culture. Maybe. Yeah. Oh. Now, can we move into doing a little bit of a reading, Liv, and see what comes through?
Absolutely. Did we like the question that was like, do you feel like there might be a new question now for what we'd like to ask the cards? So again, it's about resonance. We could probably just leave it as is, because everything has kind of been brought up.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it whatever will present itself will be in alignment with what we've talked about. Let's see.
Or maybe you'd like to ask for some clear guidance on how to move forward with this new energy.
Yeah. All right. Let's go with yeah. That. So let's have some clarity or some guidance around
what are some good reminders as we move into this new year?
Yeah. Let's do that.
For you and your listeners. Okay, lovely. So what I do is differently to traditional tarot readings is that I don't touch the cards. I don't shuffle them. I ask you to give me the numbers. And so so we're working with a number scale from 0 to 77 and including that.
Yeah.
And however you like to receive them. So when I ask people to get their numbers, I like to suggest that you kind of move out of this image that we're very used to seeing as like this, this information coming down and through this column of light and it's being bestowed upon your crown chakra. I tend to move away from that and feel into a much more feminine, multi-galactic, multi-directional sort of feeling into the void. So if you like, we've got, the kind of masculine hard-edged lines, and then when you've got the feminine, you've got these soft waves kind of coming out in all directions. So picking up information from the field. So I like people to imagine not information coming down, but that you're kind of sending your frequency out and receiving, and it could come from any direction. You might hear it in your mind or you might see it, but we'll pull 3 numbers and the numbers as they come through in order.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers can be anywhere from 0 to 77.
4, 38, 76.
Oh, wow. Lovely. Love it. Okay. Thank you. That was really nice. How did you sense and feel and know the numbers?
4 has been like I've been seeing 4 and it has been like banging the whole time we've been talking. It's been like 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. I'm like, okay. And then what was the second number? I don't know where that came from. It just came through and out. And then
38.
And then the final number was, I could see it. And it was kind of like flickering a little bit because I was like, is that really it? And then I was like, this is about trust. Is that going to the first sign? So
beautiful. Okay. I'm just grabbing all of my cards now. So I work with a couple of decks because, again, I think I mentioned the Thoth deck really is highly symbolic. And so it doesn't kind of conjure up an image straight away like some of the other decks do, but it does certainly give us context. So we're looking for, oh, that's pretty. The 3 of Cups. Yeah. I love it. And, oh, the Queen of Discs. There she is. Interesting too. Okay. Beautiful. So the answer to the question was about reminders, reminders of like what can we, keep at the forefront of our mind when or our heart as we move into the new year. So interestingly, the energy of the Emperor showed up. And this card has actually come up in the last couple of readings that I've done for women as well. So the Emperor, if you like, so the structure of the tarot starts with the Fool and then it divides into the Magician and the High Priestess, which feels very masculine, feminine traditionally. those roles have been. And then it goes into the Empress and the Emperor. And so we divide again into masculine, feminine. And so you can see the difference here. Like, she's very watery, he's very fiery. Colors are just all reds and oranges and yellows. And so I kind of feel like this is the reminder of what it feels like to be in the fire energy. So he's also, the Emperor is also Mars, it's Aries. So like that's speaking back to that Neptune and Saturn conjunction happening in Aries. It's new beginning. What also can be really helpful is to look at the Ace of Wands in this deck is like the full expression of fire. And so that is kind of how closely that relates to the Emperor energy. However, you've got the shadow side of the Emperor, and the divine structure that he can hold is total control, right? And so what we're kind of moving into is something that doesn't yet have a structure. So I feel like it's a bit of a reminder that when all fires are blazing, we want to be very discerning about what it is that we want to create. What is it that we want to build? Because if we just lean into this fire energy and like take off with the momentum without clarity first about what it is that we're doing, why we're here, and what this is going to mean for generations to come, we could hit burnout real quick. So this Emperor is kind of more of a cool cat. There he is, like almost sitting on top of Mars. We've got the Aries ram up there as well with his little piece of interior decoration. But he's also holding the king from the chessboard. So like he knows he's the king. He knows he's in charge. And that can be like a really good reminder, because I felt like we naturally went into a discussion about being in stillness, softness, receptivity. Like, I don't think we said those, but we can naturally lean into those as mothers. But being discerning and moving forward with action does take a masculine fire to do as well. So it's a bit of tempering between the two. Like, you can see how the colors here have softened out, they've mellowed. So we've got a little bit more balance happening in this image. Even though the composition is asymmetrical, I feel like there's more spaciousness around this guy. He doesn't look like he rushes into things, but he knows who he is. Yeah. And he won't be rushed by the external. He's a bit more cool. So the thing that sits underneath the surface then is the 38, which is the Three of Cups. Just checking that's right. So in the Thoth deck, this is abundance. And I feel like when we were talking about the fire horse before, that was like, we're looking at the fire horse as being like the symbol of collective power. Like, it feels like almost like an endless energy source if we want to tap into it. But I love that the Three of Cups brought the water into here as well. So again, it's like another tempering of the fire. And these cups are red, actually, and they're almost like getting a bit of a shower. They're to cool off, get your steam out. Like, there's so much here to tap into. We don't have to go into burnout. We don't have to take it all at once. Like, there is an abundance of energy here, and it's still going to be there after the year of the fire horse too. But the Three of Cups in the Light Seers deck, really sweet.
I love that.
Yeah. It's three women embraced, like having their arms wrapped around each other, looking up to the stars. And it feels very, very dreamy. Like, what can we start to visualize for the future? And what do we want to create with each other? So if you look at like the journey to the Three of Cups, the Ace of Cups is like, that's the pure expression of it. And again, we've got those like very feminine, multi-galactic, multi-dimensional, like weaving, like my mentor kind of describes it as this womp, womp, womp energy, like we're sending out into the field, picking up from the field. The Two of Cups is almost always like another expression of the lovers, like two in relationship. And then there's the three. Okay, so this was something that I had down in my notes, but I thought it might be a little bit too far out there. But if we look at the numerology of this year being a 1 year, then January 1st was 111, which is a master frequency number. So if you look at, even if you don't look at the lunar new year and you look at the Gregorian new year, with our New Year's Day was a 111 frequency. And in some symbolic and esoteric traditions, like the three is the creation force, like the creation energy. So I feel like when we're in an audience of parents, that the one and the two make the three. So when you're looking at numbers symbolically, 1 + 2 = 3, because there's the mum and the dad and the child. So that is the trinity of creation. So I love that the three came in, because I thought, oh, that might not be relevant, and then there it came in. And when we have, so two in relationship, but then three kind of brings this other sense of creative force, like when we work together collectively, not on our own, not just with two, but when we've got the three going, now we've got like some kind of really dynamic force at play. And so let's play. And then what is on the surface? So the conscious expression of this energy is the Queen of Discs. And I love the Queen of Discs. She actually reminds me of Maleficent.
She does a bit, yeah.
And also thinking too about how recently the collective perspectives on the character Maleficent have changed, thanks to those newer movies as well. Like, we're moving out of a good versus bad paradigm to like, oh, well, nobody's born a villain. Like, maybe we need to just understand their story a little bit more. The Queen of Discs in the Light Seers deck really speaks to this one. But I do love the Thoth Queen of Discs, because she's looking back over her shoulder to where she has been. And she's using that to inform who she is now. And the suit of discs is the suit of earth. And the discs, as they build through the suit in the tarot deck, is really about, it can and has traditionally been seen about material wealth, but we know also that wealth can be expressed in so many different ways. And so she kind of symbolizes the feminine expression of, I've arrived. I know who I am. I know where I've been. I've gathered a wealth of knowledge from my experience, and now I can lead with grace.
I love that.
So I love that we've got very strong masculine and feminine representation in this reading, because I think the fire horse is going to be a little like a lot of both. Like, the fire horse brings in a lot of that yang masculine energy, but you're not getting on the horse if that's what you bring to the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Liv. That was such a beautiful way to, receive a reading. And it just aligns completely with what we've already spoken about today, about the coherence and a lot of the marrying of the masculine and the feminine, and the softness and the decision making, and all of that we need to be aware of and mindful of as we move through this new period of time across, particularly over the next 13 months thereabout. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I think being conscious of the time too, I feel like that would be a nice way for us to kind of wrap up today. Like, we've talked about a lot of the themes around identity and purpose and intuitive perspective as well. And yeah, I think, is there any like final thoughts you wanted to share as
Hmm.
we come to a close today?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to weave all of this together and to play, because you should see my desk. I've made a huge mess here. I'm putting my cards everywhere, but I always reset and put them back in order. But I guess I feel like, and I think the reading kind of helped to drive this home too, is that we don't have to have it all figured out in this moment. 2026 isn't asking us to become something new overnight, but it's asking us to set a new direction with intention and to become coherent enough to sustain what it is that we choose to begin.
Mm,
And so becoming really clear about what you're capable, what your capacity is, not capability. That wasn't the right word, but what is your capacity right now? Because you can dream big, and then, like you said, don't underestimate what you can achieve over many years. Like, don't go small on your dreams, but start to become more discerning about what is your capacity right now when we are kind of shifting and moving in this liminal state and things are constantly changing around us. How do I remain adaptable with my bigger vision still inside?
yeah, totally. Totally. That's exactly how I'm approaching this year for me. And that's a good reminder. It's a particularly good reminder because sometimes, that's the vision or that's the intention. And then it's like on difficult days or, hard moments, you might be like, oh, but thank you for reminding me of that. Or thank you for reminding us of that. And also being mindful that 2026 is a year. Like, I feel like I'm definitely noticing something with the energy being like, I need to know now. And like that sense of urgency that we've already discussed. And it's like, actually, no, we can we can shift and grow and change. And so much can evolve in 12 months.
Mhm.
So I think just keeping that in mind. Yeah. And like, as you said, intention, 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 aligned action with intention. I think if we can stick to that, I think I have a really good feeling about this year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Even symbolically speaking, this is the decade of the 2020s. It's like 2020 vision. We're seeing clearly. And now we're more than halfway. We've gone past the halfway mark and we're moving into that thing that we are becoming, and we're starting to see more clearly.
yeah. Oh, I love that too. Yeah. Yes. Well, before we go into a deeper conversation, Liv, where can the listeners find you? How can people work with you? Can you give us that information, please?
Amazing. You can find me on Instagram at becoming_Liv, but I'll also give you my email address so people can reach out to me via email. I do sessions in person where I am in Orange, New South Wales, but I also do them on Zoom and can do them across time zones where that's how we move in this world. Like we adapt and see where we can slot it in our busy lives. So
Yeah, beautiful. That's amazing. So anyone anywhere listening can be in touch and connect with you. And yeah, I'm really excited for this year. I'm so honestly so grateful for your time, energy, wisdom, and excitement that you've brought to this conversation. I've been so happy and really excited for this conversation too. So thank you so much, and for giving up your time on the weekend as well. So from my heart to yours, a huge thank you. And to our lovely listeners, we will see you again soon. Thank you for joining me on Breathe, Laugh, Parent. If this episode brought you a moment of calm or connection, please share it with a fellow mama. Subscribe on your favourite platform or visit shineom.com.au/podcast for more. Until next time, keep breathing, laughing, and parenting with heart. The information shared on Breathe, Laugh, Parent, the Shine On podcast, is for general educational and inspirational purposes only. It is not medical, therapeutic, or professional advice and should not be relied on as such. always consult a qualified health or parenting professional for support tailored to your individual needs. Shine On and its guests disclaim any liability for decisions made based on this content.